we're sort of operating under this assumption that it's a straight line, a linear spectrum. But actually, I think the farther, all sides, but in our case, both sides get to the extreme end of that, they start to kind of circle around to look like each other and reflect each other. Ali says it, I think. The criteria is different, but the outcome is the same. We're all trying to control each other in some way. There is a third way, which is, live and let live. I do not agree with most of the people who are even right of center in our political world. Yet people are free to make their own choices. I believe that strongly as an American. I believe that people are allowed to make choices against their best interests. It's dumb, but they could do.
Yeah. And welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, the Broad Street Review podcast, season 10. As I've been saying all season, this has just been a wonderful season in Philadelphia theater. Just been blown away by everything I've been able to experience on these stages, and the many conversations I've had speak to that. We are at episode 37. Normally do 22 episodes a season. So that's just to give you an idea of how confident I am about our thriving theater community. So today we're taking a trip over to the Drake in Center City to Azuka Theater Company and partnership with Simpatico Theater Company. And this production of Class C, written by Chaz T. Martin, who is in the studio with us today. Chaz, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on. That's wild. They usually do 22 and you're on episode 37 or so. That is a really busy theater season.
It's just like you can't turn them away. I guess
they
need to be talked about.
I'm thrilled to be included and have made the cut. Thanks for having me.
Yes, this piece sat with me for a long time, and I had so much to say walking out of the theater, and I was so glad that you were there, and the new play development coordinator was there as well, and we were just having a chat just about how this has got my brain going. But before we get started, tell us about Chaz T. Martin.
Oh my God, where to begin? All right, well, in this context, let me see. So, okay, I grew up in Wisconsin, which is why I'm so nice. But then I went to school in New York, which is why I'm so mean. And I went actually to study acting. And through that acting program, somewhere in there, we had to take a writing for the performance course, which was functionally a sketch comedy class. And that's sort of my first exposure to writing things that people would say that an audience would hear. And it went really, really well. I'm excited to report. I realized that I'm pretty funny and that I know how to translate from like, oh, I have this vision of something that should happen on stage into a script, which then gets turned into the actual thing. And then I just kind of kept staying in New York by accident. You know how you just get stuck in a place and you keep moving from apartment to apartment, despite the fact that you're just deeper and deeper in Bushwick for some reason, and then went back to the Midwest. And I only arrived here in Philly post-pandemic. I think I'm coming up on 4 years ago. And as soon as I hit the ground running here in Philly, I was at Interact Theater Company as the literary manager at the time and eventually became the development manager as well. But I've been a writer through that entire time in various media and genres. And I've taken some time to figure out exactly what it means for me to be a writer. And by that, I mean, like, what voice am I using here? What am I interested in talking about? You just stay. I think this is especially true for artists, and particularly artists who go to some place like New York or LA, Chicago, I think increasingly like Minneapolis, Atlanta. You go with an idea, with a plan of what you're going to do and who you're going to become and how your career is going to go, and sort of forget to take stock of what's actually happening in that career. And then some fine day you wake up in your teeny tiny Bushwick apartment with like a hole in the wall where an air conditioner should be, and in place is just a quilt and tinfoil. And you're like, I don't actually have to be here to be the kind of writer that I want to be. I came here to be an actor, and that was smart. That is the right place to be if you want to be an actor, or a place to be as an actor, a young actor. But then I was writing much more than I was performing. And critically, I had much more of a desire to write than to appear on stage. Although, now in 2026, I always say, I can be extravagantly flattered into acting. I have the skills and the jobs to do it, but it's not my forte, or at
I
least
love
not
that
the
statement.
thank you. I've been saying it for years, and I'm glad it's finally finding its audience. Yeah, so that's the short version of me as an artist. And now I guess the sort of epilogue to all of that is that now I'm also, because of all of that experience of being an actor and a writer, a literary manager, a dramaturg, having worked at a theater company, a small theater company, well, mid-size, I guess I'd say now, all of that has sort of informed a new desire that I can act upon, which is I produce things now too, because I like to connect people to each other and resources to people and all of that. So, like everybody else, I do a little bit of everything in the live entertainment world.
Yeah. I feel like the producing has become more of, a a required strength. It
Absolutely.
feels like
Yeah.
it's hard if you wanna get your work out there, sometimes you have to put yourself in that seat as well, and it's like you give yourself enough space, like, "This is comfortably in the can,
Mhm.
so I can put
Yes.
this other
Yeah.
hat on," but if you're still working, you need all of that support. I think it's always
Totally.
great to talk about it because that's the part we have to be reminded of. This work takes work
Yeah, it
and
does
needs
take
support.
work, and the work also requires time. I think that's just the secret magic ingredient, which is very frustrating because it can't be rushed,
Mhm.
nor can it be slowed down, even though sometimes you may want it to. Yeah, it just takes time and it takes attention and focus, and I think like a keen sense of observation in yourself and of what's going on around you that isn't for everybody. But if those, you know, desires don't exist naturally in somebody who's trying to have their work produced and they don't want to self-produce, it behooves people to like find out who is doing that sort of thing, which is why I'm so grateful to have done Class C not as a producer. And I'm like so used, or I've sort of conditioned my friends, unfortunately. I'll be like, I'm doing a show, and they know that that means I control the box office. So in this case, much to my like delight, it has been selling pretty well, Class C, and my friends will be like,
Mhm.
"Oh, could you squeeze me in on this day?" And I'm like, "I actually have nothing to do with the box office this time." My word only goes so far, and I'm kind of using it for, say, my parents who are coming in from out of town.
Yeah.
So, like, good night and good luck. I hope I see you there, which is such an amazing problem to have of like, I don't know if there are tickets left. And also, I have I got to just be the playwright this time around,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Like having, especially I think having been a dramaturg for so many of my peers, it's so nice to get to, you know, be the bride and not the bridesmaid at the table. No shade to bridesmaids, but it's really nice. And speaking to the sort of producer side and the community side of theater and how like tight and strong that network is, all of the people whose work I have participated in have shown up for my work now. And that
Mm.
is such a gratifying, really encouraging feeling and spirit to have in the room
Yeah.
throughout the run, not just, you know, on opening night, which is typically industry. I couldn't make it last night, which at the time of this recording is the last Wednesday of the run. I couldn't make it, but in the performance report, there was a specific note from the stage manager that was like, it was like Philly AD night in here. Everybody was here and my
Wonderful.
playwright friends were there. That's what a good feeling that like people are interested in this and I
Yes.
have been there for them. And now, you know, they show up, they show up for me. That's so great. I'm not sure if I know a lot of other industries that are quite that reciprocal. It's great.
Yeah, you've become appointment theater where you know, it's like we're hearing all this excitement about it and we're like, "Who can we bring? Like, let's get a few people together." Like,
Love that.
I have several group threads of
Hmm.
theater people where we are often messaging, "Are you going to see this show?" to figure out what
Yes,
dates to line them up. And I think that's really great because everybody also wants to be part of the conversation. And I'm telling
absolutely.
you, everyone walking out of this theater is saying, "What an amazing story at this moment. It could not be more relevant." And
Thank you.
this conversation is sticking with me as if I just took it out of my ears from a podcast as I just stopped looking at it on television, as if
Uh,
just stopped thinking about it. You
yeah,
know,
sorry about that.
but the thing is, it's not overwhelming. It's sort of cautionary. And it's like, it's a what if. if we lose sight of all of this, because we can be overwhelmed by all of this information, but what happens if we miss something
Yeah, well,
important and we could have done something?
I'm gratified to hear that because that's exactly the point of view and spirit from which I wrote the play, started working on it 3 years ago. Jokingly discouraged to hear that it's still relevant. I wish it wasn't because I
Yeah.
wrote it started in 23, I guess. And at the time, yes, it was like truly ripped from the headlines. It was the only thing I was thinking about was how Roe v. Wade had just been overturned, which seemed impossible. And yet here we were living in that world. And then, since then, avalanche of right. I mean, avalanche is not the right phrase because it's not things being put on us, it's things being taken away. And in the case of this play, I was particularly thinking about gender and sexual orientation. Like the fact that now we're worried about Oberfell being overturned as well is wild to me. Like how can it be that I, in my great wisdom and age, can have been alive and truly directly affected by both the legalization of gay marriage and now also stand to lose it within
Hmm.
a decade's time. That
Yeah.
that's atrocious to me. And so anyway, I'm glad to hear that it still feels relevant and that it feels cautionary because the feeling I wanted to this feels like a dirty word, but it isn't. The feeling I wanted to manufacture was the one that people feel when they read something about, say, World War II and, particularly the Holocaust is like, oh, well, if I had been alive during that time, I would have done everything differently. I would have put Anne Frank in my attic. I would have done this, that, and the other thing. And when we look backward in time, it's easy to take the, correct moral stance on something. It is much harder to do it in the moment
Hmm.
for a whole host of reasons, which is only human. But I wanted to create a future world that is close enough to us in the present that we can see the logical steps of how did we get to where, Allie and Bliss find themselves at the top of the play and the rest of the characters throughout. How did we get there? And if it horrifies me now, before this happens, what can I do today to make sure I don't get there? Because
Mm.
by the time we get there and past there, we can all look back and say, how did this happen? We were all against it. There's
Hmm.
a book out right now with a great title, which is One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This. And that's exactly the phenomenon I think we're kind of barreling toward, but we can avoid if we all kind of, feel motivated to do it. So I'm really glad to hear that that is hitting home when people leave this 75-minute time. People go in or I would send it to them to read and I always say at the end like enjoy, I guess. Like that doesn't feel like the right word. Don't have fun, but like, have fun. Well, that was another thing I wanted to make sure made it into the play, the experience of the production and certainly on the page, but, in production, I wanted there to be laughter throughout. And Allie says at one point, "It's not funny, but it's cosmically funny." It's like, since the day-to-day is so horrifying for us right now in 2026 and whatever year this play takes place in, not so far from now, it's so horrifying and heavy that there has to be some ability, like, truly kind of a superhuman ability to zoom out and be like, this is crazy that we have done this to each other as animals on Earth. How did we mess this up so bad? We have water and abundant wildlife around us and like a beautiful ecosystem that we just kind of destroyed for no reason. And then we imposed all these rules on each other that make no sense just because some people are afraid of other people is like kind of funny. If you're looking from way up here, it's like a little funny. It
Yeah.
has to be. Or like what's the other option?
And then the cycle of greed. It's like,
Mhm.
we have this opposition to the greed, but we also envy the greed. And so we allow some of it to happen on the off chance that we might be able to partake. And it's like, and that's the part we keep quiet because it's so stressful. You're just saying like sometimes it's like if you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
As with a question mark, and I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of people have that kind of desperation where it's just like, "I'm the only one on my block saying this." Like, how
Mhm.
impactful can I be? It's rhetorical to say, like, this is what sows all that doubt,
Mm. Yeah.
which I think is,
Yeah.
you know,
There's definitely I wouldn't say it's a B plot or even a C plot in this play, but certainly permeates the entire world that we live in now and the world of the play. This separation of haves and have-nots, we have been so I mean, I consider myself a have-not, which is crazy because I live in a house, like, I'm a have. But the separation between the 1%, half of a percent now, and everybody else is so staggering, and yet we are all aspiring toward being that person. I'm happy to see actually that seems, at least in my own circle, seems to be breaking down where it's like, I don't actually aspire to be a billionaire. Billionaires should not exist. That's so unnatural. Millionaires even should not really exist, maybe.
yeah.
Multimillionaires. And that feeling permeates this play, I hope, like, subtly, with a touch that you think you have everything and you just cling to that part of your identity that could flourish, but it's never gonna flourish. Bliss, I'm thinking specifically of bliss, like, you hold on and hold on and hold on because you are still a protected class or at least a kind of person who's never gonna see the effects of your civil rights being taken away. But then you do, and that's the beat drop basically of, "No, I was never in a position to get there." And so now I'm with all the other lightly haves and
I'm
have-nots.
just like everyone else now.
I'm just like everybody else. And the feeling of, "Oh, no, I'm just like everybody else," can turn pretty quickly, as it does, I hope, in the play, although it remains up to people's interpretation, I suppose. Like, it could happen over 75 minutes that when you realize I'm just like everybody else, it's less scary and more, "Oh, I'm just like everybody else.
Hmm.
I could have been on this team the entire time." And whether that changes people's hearts and minds remains to be seen in both the play, I think, and in real life. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's and you're thinking about that, how the tables are turned. There is this mindset that, what I believe, I I believe I'm thinking of the many more
Mhm.
than the few. And so that's my thought. So the way I approach or see these situations, I feel like I'm in a sense on the right side, you know?
Mhm.
And
Like the
and
correct side?
yes, or
Yeah.
yeah. And then the story flips that around and says, what if this opposing view takes the majority? And then, even though what you're saying makes so much more sense, it just becomes a minority voice
Mhm.
even more. And then you're sitting in the room going, "Yeah, but that's more how I feel. This is how I
Yeah.
feel today." And so I'm gonna be the one who's marched out because I had compassion for people and I didn't have the greed that won over? That's a question that we're thinking about while we're in.
I'm curious to know, like, what moment in the play did that feeling hit you? I wonder if it's like, because there are a couple of times where that twist, I hope, is happening. I think it is. I've seen it a number of times now. Yeah, which moment are
Well,
you
I
thinking
mean,
of?
definitely the later scene when help comes.
Mhm.
It's like the dialogue is almost humorous in this moment of urgency, and so you're just going like, "Wow, even in this moment of urgency, they are still taking the time to be true to themselves, to who they are." And it must be a lot of work, or it is so second nature to them that even in this moment where they are, the minority, the
Mhm.
strong minority, they are still holding true to all of these values, even in a sense of urgency.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
because that character that you're talking about particularly was the last addition to the play. The play used to be a three-hander where, it was just kind of straightforwardly a revenge play, but the more I heard that, reflected back to me in a table read or something. I was like, "This is, like, fun, I guess. This is a nice, like, sort of leftist revenge fantasy." But it's not at all the thing that I feel is most urgent to say at this moment, which is,
Mm,
and I'm thrilled because I think we have different feelings about this character in this moment, which is, yeah, they're being true to themselves, good for them, but, like, being true to themselves is going to cost like some large measure of humanity for both themselves and somebody's life potentially.
Mhm.
And I feel increasingly frustrated in the world with people who, yes, I feel like I am aligned with on our ideas and values and like aspirations for the world. And yet we're suddenly diverging in how to get there. And I
Yeah.
feel that there is a not small contingent of people way on the left. And I'm way on the left, but like even more left than I am, who are willing to sacrifice the outcome for the means by which we get that outcome. And so yeah, it can cloud people's judgment of like it is more important to me right now to have a consent-based process than to throw this man on a stretcher and get him some medical attention. Like, it's interesting that the audience does laugh at that moment because it is comical. And I mean, it's not funny, but it's cosmically funny. Like, what are you talking about? When Bliss then says, stop asking him. I can't tell you the number of times I felt the same thing where it's like, why are we arguing about this? There is
Mhm.
like really something at stake here. And yet I can see your point of view that like this person stays true to what they believe because that is kind of the only way that you build the next world is you can't waffle
Mhm.
on what you believe. You can't be wishy-washy and cherry pick and what you're saying of like, well, I'll stick to my values when it suits me and then not when it doesn't. And yet I also feel like we've got to be able to zoom out a little bit and see the bigger picture because we're in such an acute crisis. It's interesting, like the perspective on this has to be flexible, where, we can't just say no to things because they don't perfectly align with how we would like them to go. I have said throughout this play, and people disagree with me, but I feel um, politics in our real world we're sort of operating under this assumption that it's a straight line, a linear spectrum. But actually, I think the farther, all sides, but in our case, both sides get to the extreme end of that, they start to kind of circle around to look like each other and reflect each other. The value, Ali says it, I think. The criteria is different, but the outcome is the same. We're all trying to control each other in some way. And, but there is a third way, which is, live and let live. I do not agree with most of the people who are even right of center in our political world. Yet people are free to make their own choices. I believe that strongly as an American. I believe that people are allowed to make choices against their best interests. It's dumb, but they could do.
Yeah.
um and then, if I apply that same logic to my own, fellows and kindred spirits, I see that is also true sometimes. And ultimately, I'm monologuing, I'm sorry.
I
I
love
wanted
it.
the play.
You're a writer.
Yeah. I would make just such an excellent, like, Disney villain. I just get one moment in the sun, and I will talk for an hour and a half. But I wanted the play to say that to to condemn certainly people on the way right who have totally put us in this position. There's no debate to be had about that to me. That's iron. That is as tight as a bear trap. But then there is some question to be had of, like, over here way on the left, are we, like are we impeding ourselves from making some actual tangible good progress toward a
Mm.
world that we want? And it takes all kinds. It takes all kinds. We need people like this character who comes in and is helpful, and we also need to be able to be flexible and, like, work together and cooperate instead of saying, "It is only my way
Yeah.
and nothing else."
And
That's
that's
kind
that's
of
the tough part right
yeah,
there,
it is tough.
because you're saying, somebody whose your view is really about like the people that I am charged to take care of, like me and my family, like this is
Mhm,
how I prefer that we live. And
mhm,
I always wonder why the argument for someone's position is so loud that it has to be the national message. I'm like, don't you
exactly right.
realize there's so much difference? Like there's differences in religion that we don't understand. And the thing is you have to hold space for it. At the same time, you just try it. You're not trying to make that your viewpoint. You're just trying to understand
Absolutely.
why this is another culture's viewpoint.
Yeah, or you know what? You don't have to. You don't
Yeah.
have to understand, but you can't go around and bulldoze other people's ways of life. That's just not
Everyone should be like
cool.
me. And
Yeah,
how is it
and
decided
why?
that you are the thing everyone should be?
Right, not to mention, I can't think of anything more boring than all of us being exactly the
Yes.
same, you know?
Absolutely.
And that is, I think, the aim of really extreme groups of any kind, whether it's like a
Mhm.
cult or a political party or even like a religion, is like, why are we all trying to be exactly the same? All that now that we're here in 2026 and we're aware that billions of people live on this earth and have been like hacking it for the most part, it's not really a problem. We can coexist if we just stop trying to impose our own points of view, religions, whatever on each other. It's puzzling to me.
Yeah.
I think
And it's
particularly as an
exhausting.
American. Yeah, where it's like there is an American spirit of I mean, look, it's so complicated, but like it's a kind of a good idea to just on paper, like, yeah, what if we all just kind of got to do what we wanted to and also together contributed to a way of holding all of each other up, economically or whatever. What a great idea, but just collapses in practice because people are human beings and have their own, you know, ulterior motives. And there is sort of a, to me, mysterious desire for everybody to live exactly how I say. You know what I mean? Not me specifically, but yeah. And then trying to apply that logic to the people you do feel a kinship with is uncomfortable. But I also thought, as I added this fourth character and this twist at the end of the play, I know who's in the theater. It isn't the guy who voted for this president 3 times and would do it a 4th time if he could. It's not that guy. So, I'm not gonna waste everybody's time and everybody's breath
Mm.
saying it's bad to do that. We know that is baseline in the whoever's coming to the theater in Philadelphia anyway, and probably in any city, at any place where they're programming this play. That's like a known shared feeling. So what is a genuinely challenging idea to grapple with if the point of theater writ large is to A, hold up a mirror to the audience, and B, invite or challenge people to think about something kind of difficult to put into practice in the real world, but then they can watch it unfold in the sandbox, in the experimentation space of the theater. What's going to actually make an audience not really know how they feel? Beyond just like story ambiguity, but really internally, this is challenging for me to grapple with, which I'm really pleased to see. And I think you have been experiencing this too, as when you left the theater, maybe when you're talking to people afterward, it's doing that. It's not a neat little ending where everybody knows what happens and it's like, "Oh, shucks," or "Gosh, that feels good."
Yeah.
You know,
In that
it's
sense, it
tough.
feels like a pilot for a TV
Say
series
more,
on
Darnell. Go on. Louder for the
AMC,
networks.
are you listening? And we were saying how it felt like that. It felt like an episode of the week in a sense, like in this world,
Yeah.
that potentially has flashbacks to the past of like how we got here leading up to. It was like, we love exploring this hypothetical because it's crazy how close to real this feels. And it also speaks to the how well thought out these storylines are with writers. Like you're actually doing the work and pulling existing evidence, to tell a story of what might be, what could become.
Mhm.
And I just think it's just so it's just so well presented in this space to say like, "Oh my god, I'm listening," I'm paying
Huge.
attention. Not that I wasn't before, but
No,
like
no, I mean that sincerely. It's
there's a
hard to get
s
people's attention.
there's a simplicity about all of this that I love the scenic design, how
Oh my
it just
god,
felt
yeah.
so open, but also felt so distant and kind of remote, and just the way the way your players play through that space, it just feels like we're in a huge field and like we're on this land and we're at the space where there's a structure and there's a kind of a showdown,
Yeah, and
the whole
can
time.
I just say the Sausage and Schwartz, they're design of this set. I remember being in the first production meeting and hearing kind of the tail end of, I got there late, classic. But hearing the tail end of the description of this set, I was like, I can't see it in my head. I don't know how I feel nervous about that because in my mind, I'm not a set designer. I'm extremely visually literal. So I was like, no, there needs to be this shed with the things in it and this place where she gets the pie. Like, it's very clear to me. It's very real, like based in realism. But then afterward, Becky Wright, the just tremendous director of this play, who is so smart and so generous and fun and like, asks all the right questions at exactly the right time, which is awesome. Anyway, she was like, you know what? We can include you in all of these discussions. I'm also like defending Sasha's vision of this because I see how it's going to unfold. I think it's really good, but, and will be super effective. But like, what do you want to contribute to this? And early in the process of actually, the production work, not just the table work of the script, I was like, you know what, Becky, I don't want to be involved. I think actually I need to step away from that part of this. Like, my job is the script, and I want you and the team to produce this play and design this play because that's not my forte. And I'm so glad I did because I just got to let everybody cook and like look what they made. It is
Yeah.
beyond what I could have ever possibly imagined in my truly limited idea of what a set is, which is not, I'm not even like saying that with any judgment of myself. It's just like, that's not what I am in the theater world doing.
Mhm.
But there are people who have these expansive, beautiful imaginations of how to use space in a way that I simply don't. And so it's important to get out of their way to let them enhance the thing that I have, spent my time making. That's my forte. And now you do yours. That's what I love about the theater is it's just so collaborative. There's a hierarchy. There should be so that decisions get made and things get
Yeah.
done. I've spent some time in the film world and that being on a film set is just so hierarchical. Only one person gets to decide, which is the director. If the lighting team comes in, electric comes in, and the director's like, no, 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 change all this. That happens. But in
Yeah.
this case, it's like everyone pitches in with their particular expertise, which is exactly how it should be. And then when you get the right team together, which Azuka and Simpatico did beautifully for this production, it all works in a way that makes a script sing. And if the script is also being tended to by the director and the actors who are asking such good questions throughout the the whole process of table working and rehearsal, you get something that is truly truly more than the sum of its parts. And each part is also so good by itself. So I mean, for a world premiere of a tough play, man, every person who touched it is just like an all-star. What a lucky, lucky playwright I am that that happened. So, whew, yeah.
Absolutely. What feedback have you received that has been the most valuable?
Most valuable, I think you mean after the actual,
Yeah,
like,
through
after
this
opening night or
yeah,
through the whole
after
process?
opening through this
Okay,
process now.
because I got really good feedback in table work too. But after it's been open and it's, on its feet and it's a real live play, I'm trying to think of like, okay, I'm just going to say some things, a menu of things for you to choose from. One was someone who said after the play to Autumn, who is the dramaturg for this play and the new play development director over at Azuka, he was like, "This play wasn't for me. I don't like this genre, just nothing about it appeals to me, and I don't like that the cis man in this play is the butt of every joke, and that we don't seem to be allowed to make jokes about LGBTQ people ever in the world or in this play." And he was always the butt of the joke. Nottam was like, "Oh, great feedback, good to know. Thanks for self-selecting as someone that you wasn't to play for, but you came anyway, great. What did you take away from the play?" And he was like, "Well, the idea that, like, everyone can change, blah, 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 people do it all the time." And then, like, continue to talk about things he didn't like about the play. But to me, that was actually, like, nailed it. You
Yeah,
didn't like the play, and yet you still heard the thing that I wanted you to take away, which was people change all the time. And to me, a thesis statement of this play is the only way forward viable, sustainable way forward is we have to forgive each other for our past decisions and sins and mistakes. The longer we harbor grudges against each other or, you know, the more permanently we cancel each other for XYZ, you're just eliminating possible allies in for the
Mhm.
future. And so that doesn't make any sense to me. So that sticks out to me as like, this man knew he didn't like this play before coming, came anyway, thinks he took away kind of the wrong impression to me, or like a very unusual impression, and still heard what I was trying to say. That's like huge success to me. I also love it's not like verbal feedback, but I love reading in a performance report our stage manager Maddie like times the pause between the final blackout and when the applause starts. And last night I think was the longest one that I've heard about so far, like 7 seconds of just silence in a dark theater, people not knowing if it's over, people not knowing what they're feeling or what they've witnessed here. That's to me extremely powerful feedback because it
Mm.
tells me that like you don't know that the play is over. Which A, best case scenario, you want more. I can do that. B, you're feeling something that is stopping you from the rote script of what we do at the theater, which is in a full blackout, you applaud. But you're actually feeling something enough that it is stopping you from doing that. It's interrupting the usual pattern enough that you'd rather sit, or you have no choice to, or you're confused enough to sit in silence for 7 seconds, up to 7 seconds before remembering like, yes, this is now the thing that we do, or somebody starting that and breaking that tension. That I didn't expect that would happen, but it tells me a lot about what the play is doing to people who watch it. Uh,
You know, I can speak to that moment. I think when the lights went down, it felt like the, players were still playing, you know?
Ooh, tell me
They
more
did
about that.
they didn't just drop, because the house went black. It was like they were still in those modes, and it felt like that slowed down in the most perfect way as they were transitioning to a curtain. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I'm telling you, there's something about the Bluver Theater. It has this versatility that
Yeah.
allows you to sort of anticipate with excitement how they plan to set us up in this space. And
Mhm.
it has never disappointed. I always felt like that space elevated the story that we were engaged in.
Yes, and the decision, either with Sasha, set designer, or Becky, or both, deciding to set it as an alley stage so that you
Hmm.
are you are looking at the audience across from you, or you can. Sometimes you can't avoid it. That is so smart. Like, it just underscores a theme in the play to me of like, who are you among at any moment? Who can you trust? Who's on your side?
Mm.
Everybody could be on the same side, but like, who's having what reactions? It is fascinating to me to glance up and look at. I mean, I know my play pretty well, so I'm like, "Oh, this moment's coming up. I wonder what they're gonna do."
Hmm.
Or like I'm an insufferable ham, so I know when every joke is coming, and I'm like, "Are they gonna like it? Are they gonna
Like,
laugh?"
nudging the entire audience.
Yeah, they didn't allow me to have a snare and hi-hat, to underscore my own jokes, which was, the right decision. But I think it's just such a smart way to produce this play because you're the other side of the audience. It's just that other side phenomenon of like, I can see you and you can see me, but we're also kind of in the woods together and we're watching something maybe we shouldn't be seeing. That's so smart. And I've never seen anything in that space in the Bluever in that configuration. I just think it is so, so good. And I hope it inspires other productions and stage set designers to like be as creative with that totally blank space as possible.
Yeah.
I am certainly not the person to like say what my ideas are, but yeah, how cool. How
Yeah.
cool.
What do
Yeah.
you think? What do you think this piece will say in 10 years?
God, I hope it's so irrelevant in 10 years. I hope we look back on it and we're like, "Oh, remember when we were in that really sticky situation?
Yeah.
Thank God we pulled ourselves out of that."
Imagine what could have happened.
And Matt, wow, we dodged that bullet. That's my dream, but my true expectation is that the play will unfortunately remain relevant
Mm,
decade after decade, and not always because of the exact same situation that we're in right now with the same players and the same threats. Right now, it feels like, I think you said at the beginning of our chat here, like, it does feel like things I just heard on a podcast.
mhm,
I hope over time that those become stand-ins. Well, I don't hope this, but I foresee that the things we are discussing in the play, particular civil rights, become sort of symbolic stand-ins for whatever the threat du jour is. But actually, it's interesting. I When I first wrote the play, maybe the first or second, possibly even the third draft, I felt pretty strongly that I didn't want it to echo this exact, or not echo, but to be set in a particular moment the way it kind of is now, because I feel strongly, if I mean, just looking at human history and then where we are today, it seems inevitable to me actually that 100 years from now, people will find themselves in a similar debacle of, you know, some regime comes to power. It just happens. That is the cycle of human desire, it to dominate and to take over. And that's bad to me, but I think, inevitable. In 10 years, I think it will feel prescient, unfortunately. If we stay on the track that we're on now and don't heed the warning that's in this play, I think it will feel, yeah, as I said, prescient. Even some of the things that are in the play now that I wrote 3 years ago have actually come true. I first wrote the line, "I voted for him 3 times." I won't say who says it, but I wrote that line at a time when it was impossible to have voted for him 3 times. You could have voted for him twice, and he lost the second time. There was no way to know at the time that you could vote a third time for him and that he would win. And so that came true. Whoops. And then I had to add the line, "I wouldn't have voted for him a fourth time had there been a vote." Now, I don't want that to come true, but
mhm,
who knows? It'll be interesting in future productions of this play, like a director's note or a dramaturg's note, to say this play was its first draft in 2023. It had its world premiere in 2026. Here we are in 2036,
mhm.
you know, in a basement somewhere because theater has been outlawed and we can't actually do this anymore, but we're doing it anyway, cabaret style. We The things that this playwright was imagining actually came true, and perhaps artists of all stripes have an ability to imagine a future that we should take more seriously, you know? So, it's not I don't actually have a very hopeful outlook on what
Yeah,
this play is gonna feel like in 10 years, and I desperately hope to be totally proven wrong.
mhm, yeah. Um, this This production, Class C, written by Chaz T. Martin, will stick to you. You will probably find yourself sitting somewhere just writing your thoughts out. You're like, "My brain is going. Who can I call?" Or we need a theater circle to sit and talk about this. Just the execution of this work. I'm just it's just wonderful. The team that came
Thank you.
together,
Yeah,
directed
I
by
couldn't agree
Rebecca
more.
Wright, and this wonderful team brought together by Azuka Theater and Simpatico Theater. This production, if you're listening to this, you probably have a day or two to go get tickets. I hope you have them because there is a sold out sort of monitor on this production on the website. So you want to make sure that you're a part of this conversation. You couldn't have heard from anyone who has seen this production and not said something about it that led you to need to be in the room. I don't know. I mean, I was moved by this. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm gushing all over you, but I'm just saying like
No, no, don't let me stop you, please.
this is that kind of work that is so relevant on the stage right now, especially as we're looking at 250 years of a nation and saying like, can you imagine that we got this far through all the struggles, through everything that even the founding of our nation had many flaws, and we've continued to work towards correcting those, and we keep moving forward to have it dismantled, by us just being tired, you know?
Mhm. God, yeah.
So that's the question. It's like, okay, we were younger when we were not as involved in this, we were paying attention. We didn't know, we didn't have the influence of technology now. We can connect to so many people so quickly now, especially as artists. We think about like we are messengers, whether we are taking something from the canon and representing that in so society can look at it against what's currently going on. But we have this power, and I think that's why there's always an assault on the arts because it has the power to change the world. And this this has the power to make people think. And we should I think it would behoove Azuka and Simpatico to think about just revisiting this on socials in November and in October as remember?
Just
As you
yeah,
are
an
yeah.
election night staged reading to
Just
just
I'm
take
gonna
your
leave
mind
this
off of
here.
things. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. But yes, this production, Class C, it's a world premiere. It's on stage at the Bluver Theatre until the 24th. So if you're listening to this and you have a chance, please go. Bring a friend. Bring many people. Theater is more fun with a plus one. I've been saying that forever.
So true.
And yes, and then talk to other people about their experience of this too, and keep the conversation of Class C alive. Chaz T. Martin, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. This was truly a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Always, always a pleasure.
And just as a reminder, you can go get those tickets at Azuka Theater. That's theaterre.org. AzukaTheater.org. All right, thanks so much. I'll see
Thank
you out in
you.
the world.
I'll see you out there.